Welcome to the Music Show. I'm your host, Jeremy Matthews. On today's show, we welcome Hoggard High School Orchestra teacher, Christina Fuchs. Today, we'll be discussing the benefits to students of working with guest conductors. She'll explain the importance of a guest conductor and what they can add to a piece of music. Then we will take an in-depth look at one of the core instruments of the orchestra, the viola. And finally, we will see a performance from the Hoggard Orchestra's pre-festival concert. We have a great show for you today, so stay tuned. We'll be right back.
History's Timeline, a world of history in 60 seconds, brought to you by New Hanover County Schools. March 8, 1930, Mahatma Gandhi starts a civil disobedience campaign in India. November 8, 1932, Franklin Roosevelt, Democrat, wins election and becomes the 32nd president. January 30th, 1933, Adolf Hitler becomes Chancellor of Germany. 3 months later, he is declared dictator. March 31st, 1939, Britain and France agree to support Poland if invaded by Hitler. 6 months later, German troops march into Poland. World War II begins. This has been History's Timeline, an educational snapshot of the fascinating people, places, and events that have shaped our past.
I really don't know where I would be without music.
The reason you have the Commodores today is because we started in music in school.
We have been really influenced, I know, including Justin, by music in our schools.
It just makes you feel good.
It's good for the soul.
It brings something out in you that nothing else does.
No kid left behind, no music left behind.
Welcome back to the Music Show. We have a guest with us today, the orchestra teacher from Hoggard High School, Miss Christina Fuchs. And we're going to talk about bringing in a guest conductor to work with students. Welcome, Christina. How are you?
Good, thank you.
Good. First question is, why would you invite a guest conductor to work with your students?
It's great to bring them in, especially close to a concert, as they're going to work on those last-minute musical ideas to bring new things to our performance, to point out things that maybe I wouldn't point out, but to also build on the things that I have been telling the students, to reinforce everything that we have been working on and saying, good guys, you're doing this well, let's do this a little bit more. And that reinforces me as a teacher, as well as gives them something new to look at during class and gives them new ideas, and it's just a fun experience for everyone.
How do you, well, before this, how soon before the guest conductor comes in do you start working on the music with your students? 2 months, 1 month?
Probably at least a couple months,
Okay.
6 to 8, 8 weeks.
Okay.
Just so that they've got that foundation going there. So the guest conductor is not coming in and actually literally having to rehearse them on parts that they're not able to do, teach them the things. They're expanding on the musical ideas that need to be presented.
How do you approach your students on how to behave and conduct themselves in playing with a guest conductor?
One of the things I told them was we talked about that the conductor conducts typically adults and professional musicians or students who are at the higher level and very, very structured in what they do. And in my class, sometimes students talk out of turn or play out of turn. And I explained to them that's absolutely unacceptable when there is a guest in that room on that stand with a baton. So you will respect him far more than you respect me. And have your pencil on your stand, be ready to mark things if he's telling you to do something, if you just be very attentive.
Okay, sounds good. Now how were you able to get a guest conductor?
Well, the Wilmington Symphony has been very friendly to the schools in New Hanover County recently. Dr. Stephen Arante was a guest conductor who came to work with our students, and he actually worked with a couple other schools in the area as well. It's part of this outreach program between Community Symphony and community schools to get this bond to go together, and I think it's just fantastic, and that's how that worked out.
That's great. That's great. And When you bring in a guest conductor, what kind of experience are you hoping, or what do you hope your students will get from this experience?
I'm hoping that they're able to, first of all, notice that I'm not making everything up when I stand on that podium and tell them to do things, that's reinforcement to them. Second, that they're learning, wow, we can get better at this. She's, not just saying that we need to get better because she thinks that we need to get better, but there's some extra musical expert out there who thinks, yeah, you can still be better. But also to reinforce that they are talented and good, because at the end of the day, he said, wow, you guys are a really talented group to work with, and they need to hear that. So that was great.
So it reinforces their belief that they can succeed in music.
Absolutely.
Great, great. And how did your students respond during the experience and after the experience? Were they joyful and elated from the accomplishments they made?
Honestly, I was surprised that they behaved so well. So they obviously were very attentive and excited about it as it was going on, as he was conducting, so that was great. The day after, I could tell that they were, very interested about the ideas that he had presented, and especially my cellos. He had, during the Russian Sailor's Dance, had mentioned to them to play things a little shorter and a little bit more accented, which is what I had been beating them with the past few weeks. And to have someone else say that, I was like, oh, thank you. And they'll actually probably do it now. We were able to do that in class and just reinforce everything that he said in class, and then they would listen to me, and it actually happened. And other ideas that he presented about chord structure and creating music out of what's happening in the music. We were able to have a lesson on cadences and such, and the students were able to make some great, very mature musical ideas with the music, so it was great.
Sounds good,
yeah.
Sounds good. And once the guest is left and you're back at the podium teaching and directing, how do you incorporate the guest conductor's ideas into your teaching?
Well, just having listened, I was standing in the room trying to take note of what specific things he was working on. They were all great ideas. So of course the next day I'm just like, let's reinforce this. Let's work on this section, because he had said specifically, let's do this here. And I liked his ideas. They were very, very exciting. And it's not something that typically I'm going to be able to hear, because I'm sitting in front of them every day listening to, are they in tune? Are they playing the right rhythm? Are they together? What's the overall sound coming out? And he was coming and picking out, let's put a little breath, let's put a little pause here just for this dramatic effect. And that's something I wouldn't typically look for as a teacher. And so that was really exciting to be able to listen to him say that, and then to actually do it in class the next day with them.
So it sounds like it was a good experience for your students and also for you as an educator.
Oh yeah, it was great.
That's good. Have you ever brought in any other guest artists or musicians to work with your students?
Yeah, a part of the Wilmington Symphonies, not only to bring out Dr. Stephen Arante, but to bring out a lot of their section leaders. We had Beverly Andrews come out to work with our violins, and that was a fantastic experience for them. Got a violist and a cellist and also a bassist from the area to come lead sectionals with the students, and that was very exciting for them. They really enjoyed that. So.
Good. I'm sure it's good for the students to also have another person that's from the community that's also playing professionally, so they can see what it could be like for them years down the road.
Yes, that's fantastic.
Okay. Well, I appreciate you working with us on this segment. We will be back in just a few minutes with more of the music show, so please stay tuned.
I'm tall enough to reach the monkey bars.
I can reach anything on the counter, even things you think I can't. I can understand everything you S-P-E-L.
I'm the tallest kid in my class.
I'm getting pretty big, but to help me survive a car crash, I still need you to give me a boost.
Until they're 4'9", use a booster seat in the car and don't let them down.
Glucose plus oxygen equals carbon dioxide plus water.
Hey, Gio, what's up?
And energy. Superior vena cava, pulmonary artery, coronary artery.
I'd like to pass them back to you now.
4 cattle tissue types of endoplasmic reticulum with ribosomes.
Is it 3 o'clock already?
And without copy of her skeletal anatomy notes. For Chem Wednesday, philosophy basics, skeletal anatomy Thursday, the lobes of the cortex.
She's got the drive,
cranial volume,
the energy,
frontal, parietal,
the heart,
occipital,
and the talent.
motor output.
Pre-med.
But she wouldn't be here without your help. Please support the United Negro College Fund, because a mind is a terrible thing to waste.
For Chem 2.
Welcome back to the Music Show. In this segment, we are going to discuss the viola. The viola is a bowed string instrument. It is the middle voice of the violin family, between the violin and the cello. It is slightly larger than the violin, with a deeper, more mellow tone. It is tuned a fifth lower than the violin and parallels the human alto voice. In early orchestra music, the viola's role was merely harmony. It often had the bass line when the composer could not think of anything else to write. The melody was left to the brighter, higher violin and more powerful, distinct cello. Into the 20th century, the viola began to get a more prominent role and is now sometimes featured as a solo instrument. Violas were made as early as the 1500s. In the early classical period, many composers felt the viola was a source of anxiety and the instrument was regarded as clumsy to play and uncomfortable to write for. The 18th and 1900s brought better parts for the viola, as composers started to recognize it more as an instrument in its own right, with different characteristics. In the earlier part of the 20th century, more composers began to write for the viola, encouraged by the emergence of specialized soloists such as Lionel Tertis. In the latter part of the 20th century, a substantial repertoire was produced for the viola. Many composers have written viola concertos. Now we welcome back Christina Fuchs, who joins us with one of her students, Kyrie Huggins, a senior at Hoggard, and they will tell us more about the viola. Welcome back, and welcome, Kyrie.
Thank you.
First, would you show us the viola? Show the camera the viola?
Yep.
Okay. And it does look very similar to the violin, just a little larger. Okay. Now, how does the viola differ from the violin?
Well, one of the obvious features, like you said, is slightly larger, so it's a little more comfortable, I guess, to play for some people. It's a little bigger, as the violin is a little smaller, and like the tone of the instrument is a little more mellow and soft-spoken, more than like the violin is more like the outspoken. You can hear it over most of the instruments, but the viola is kind of somewhere in the middle, and they're trying to peek through there.
Now, did you begin playing the viola in 6th grade, or did you start on a different instrument?
I actually started on cello for about like 2 or 3 days, and then I went to the viola.
Okay, all right. And as a beginner student, what does a beginner student need to start on an instrument like the viola?
A will to play.
A will to play?
Well, you obviously have to have an instrument, yeah. All you need, well, probably a music book, some instruction, that's about it.
Okay.
Just to add to the difference between the violin and the viola is the viola, I like to think about, is basically like a mini cello. Same strings as the cello, A, D, G, and C, just compact size.
So is the viola an octave higher than the cello?
Yes.
Okay, so it will be 8 steps or 8 notes above the cello, okay. What styles of music would use or feature the viola?
Definitely later music, later classical music, 20th century. As you said in the description of the viola, early composers found it hard to write for. It's kind of known as the, it's just not a very well structured instrument. The violin has perfect acoustics as well as the cello because of the proportions of it. The viola, however, just doesn't make any sense at all from a physics standpoint with proportions and mathematics behind making instruments. So it just didn't project well. And back in the Baroque era, you were in these big concert halls, and the bright violin would project through the hall, the cello would, but the viola was just kind of soft in there, and you didn't really know what to make of it. And then with Lionel Tertis, he was a phenomenal violist in the early 1900s, started to make the viola popular. Composers like Hindemith, Shostakovich, Beethoven a little bit. He liked the viola, still didn't give it any favorable parts per se in his works. Started to make the viola a well-known instrument, more well composed for, absolutely. So later 1900s, absolutely.
All right. What is the range of the viola? Like how low to how high can it play? And if you would compare it to a voice in the chorus or choir, would it be an alto or a different voice?
It would be an alto.
Okay.
Yeah. The second highest, the violin obviously is the soprano because it's the high pitched, and then the second highest would be the viola, which is the alto.
Okay. So it goes. What is the name of the highest note you can play on the viola?
It's actually. We don't have a highest note.
Okay,
There are a lot of things we can do with our instruments to make high notes, false harmonics, such as.
Okay.
If you were to look at normal viola concertos, and what we typically do is we've got the low C, which is as low as the viola can go, unless of course you retune the string, which is very rare in pieces to do that. And that C is the C in the bass clef. Okay. And then this is about an A, I'd say 3 octaves above A4 in the treble clef.
Okay, all right. Now, is there a difference between a beginner's viola and one a professional would play? And if it's like other instruments, probably, but could you elaborate on that?
Absolutely. Beginners are going to start on an instrument made out of really hardy wood, something that they can drop and hopefully it doesn't fall to pieces. As you progress as a student, you're going to get into instruments. Also, they're getting away from machine-made. Student instruments will be made by machine. The nicer the instruments you get, the more by hand they're made, and the nicer woods that they're made out of, and of course go up to millions and billions of dollars sometimes for violins. So, yeah.
Kyrie, would you play a scale for us to demonstrate the sound of the viola? Thank you. Very nice. Very nice. Well, is there a favorite piece that you have for the viola that you have played lately?
Yes, the Telemann Viola Concerto in G major. That's one of my favorite viola concertos.
Is there a short piece you could demonstrate for us today?
Yes, it's the Telemann. It's, it's just a simple tune. It's
and I'm sure that will be recognizable by a lot of our audience.
Oh, yeah. Well, it's one of the most famous viola concertos, actually written in the Baroque era, surprisingly enough.
Interesting.
Not really originally for the viola, but it's still well played on viola.
All right, all right. Well, I'd like to thank you for coming in and sharing your knowledge of the viola with us today.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for staying tuned to the Music Show. Coming up next will be the Hoggard Orchestra performing the Russian Sailor's Dance from their pre-festival concert. Stay tuned for more of the Music Show.
Today, in southeastern North Carolina, there are over 50,000 people at risk of hunger. Today, in the coastal Carolinas, there are over 15,000 children who go hungry. Today, over 11% of those using food assistance are elderly. Make a difference today.
Passing gas in the presence of others is not only inappropriate,
That is so foul.
it can be deadly. Passing gas releases a fog of carbon monoxide
Grandpa.
and other poisonous fumes that can contribute to asthma and pneumonia.
You're killing us over here.
Kids shouldn't be exposed to secondhand smoke. Don't pass gas. Take it outside.
Jack London endured more hardships at the age of 21 than most people experience in a lifetime. His struggles developed in him sympathy for the working class and provided inspiration for his career as a writer. In 1903, he earned national fame when he published the popular novel The Call of the Wild. This background in literature has been brought to you by New Hanover County Schools on the Learning Network of the Cape Fear.
Words are invigorating.
Words are
empowering.
Words are dynamic. When you understand,
comprehend,
fathom a lot of words, you have more opportunities than you could ever imagine.
Join GSN, the network for games, in spreading the word about the importance of a great vocabulary.
Find the tools you need to help a kid win with words at winwithwords.com.
This is Lands and People, your passport to the world.
The Republic of Argentina, together with Chile, its smaller neighbor, occupies the southern portion of the continent.
This is Lands and People, your passport to the world.
The country of Wales stands on the island of Great Britain, where it occupies a broad western peninsula jutting out into the Irish Sea. The Welsh trace their heritage to the Stone Age tribes known as Iberians. The capital is Cardiff, and English and Welsh are the country's major languages.
This has been Lands and People, your passport to diverse cultures, different ideas from around the world.
You know, little trash becomes big trash. So please, don't litter.
Do your part to keep America beautiful.
Welcome back to the Music Show. I'd like to thank my guests, Mrs. Christina Fuchs and Kyrie Huggins, for joining us today and talking to us about the role of guest conductors. If you would like to know more about the music programs within New Hanover County Schools, please visit our website at www.nhcs.net/artsed, ARTSED. I'm Jeremy Matthews. Thanks for tuning in.